Coming up on Arirang News, South Korea confirms more than 160 new cases of the coronavirus, most of them still connected to the religious group based in the city of Daegu. The country's also reported another death, bringing the total to 7. President Moon Jae-in calls on officials to look into passing an extra budget for fighting the coronavirus and its impact on local businesses and the economy. And the coronavirus has forced some of Korea's biggest companies to stop production in some cases. The tourism sector in particular has seen bookings fall by up to 90%. It's 4:00 p.m. here in Seoul. Thanks for tuning in to Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. The coronavirus has claimed one more life in South Korea, and the number of cases is now well over 700. With the details, we have our Hong Yu on the line. So, Yu, another death here in Korea, and of the new confirmed cases, most of them are connected to the church based in Daegu.
That's right, Devin. Another 161 new cases of the coronavirus were confirmed overnight, bringing the total number of cases to 763. The majority of the newly confirmed cases, at least 129 cases, were from Daegu-based members of a religious group known as Shincheonji. Out of all confirmed cases nationwide, 74.6% of them are either related to this religion or to Cheongdo Daenam Hospital, where at least 112 people have been infected. A 62-year-old man diagnosed with COVID-19 died on Sunday, raising the total number of deaths to 7 as of Monday morning. He was hospitalized at Cheongdo Daenam Hospital, where the country's first coronavirus deaths happened. With this, the number of deaths at Cheongdo Daenam Hospital that have been linked to the virus has risen to 5.
Well, Korea's health authorities are working around the clock to contain the virus, of course. Safe to say, though, concerns among the public are at a new high. What are the authorities planning to do?
As the government has raised the COVID-19 alert to highest level serious in its 4-tier system, the Korea Centers for Disease Control will distribute revised prevention rules for citizens. Those rules include not going to school or work if one has a high fever or symptoms of pneumonia. It also advises pregnant women and people over 65 years old to avoid places with large numbers of people. The Korea Centers for Disease Control's Central Disaster Headquarters announced it will delay the start of the new school year for a week from March 2nd to March 9th as a preventive measure. This applies to all kindergarten, elementary, middle, and high schools, as well as special needs schools nationwide. Back to you.
All right, Hong Yu reporting there. Thank you for that. Now, among the countries hit hardest by the coronavirus has been Japan, where thousands of passengers are still quarantined on the Diamond Princess cruise ship. As of Monday, Japan, including the cruise ship, has more than 800 confirmed patients and 4 deaths. Elsewhere, Italy saw a big jump in the number of cases over the weekend, bringing it to 157 with 3 deaths. And the highest number of deaths outside China right now is in Iran, which has 8 deaths. In China, though, according to official numbers, the rise in new cases appears to be slowing down, staying below the 1,000 mark for a 5th consecutive day. On Monday, China's National Health Commission confirmed the total number of infections had reached 77,000, with nearly 2,600 deaths. And 6 countries have now banned people entering them from South Korea. This includes Israel, which has also advised its nationals to leave South Korea if possible. Lee Seung-jae reports.
Looking to stop COVID-19 breaking out in their country, the Jordanian government has announced plans to stop South Koreans entering the country. Jordan also took the same step for Chinese and Iranian nationals. A total of 6 countries have now slapped entry bans on South Koreans: Jordan, Israel, Bahrain, Kiribati, Samoa, and American Samoa. Israel has also issued a strong recommendation for its nationals in South Korea to return home. For Israelis planning to visit South Korea, Israel's foreign ministry especially recommends they avoid traveling to Daegu or Gyeongsangbuk-do province, where hundreds of confirmed patients have been reported over the past week. Having already banned any foreign tourists who have traveled to China, from Monday, Israel is banning foreign nationals who have visited South Korea and Japan within the past 2 weeks. Multiple media outlets in Israel have reported on the travel ban, including a piece in the Jerusalem Post, which says its ambassador to China is currently under quarantine as he was on a plane with South Korean tourists during a recent trip to South Korea. Israel's internet news outlet Ynet says Israeli authorities could quarantine about 200 South Korean tourists at military bases near Jerusalem because of fears they could spread the virus. Seoul voiced regret over Israel's abrupt enactment of the entry ban, as Israel on Saturday barred nearly 180 foreigners, including 130 South Koreans aboard a Korean Air flight, from entering the country without any prior notice. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
South Korea's top diplomat Kang Kyung-hwa spoke with the head of the World Health Organization in Geneva on Sunday, local time, about the coronavirus epidemic. Foreign Minister Kang explained Seoul's efforts to fight the virus, including raising its alert to its highest level. The WHO chief responded with confidence that South Korea will be able to cope with the outbreak thanks to its robust system. He added that the WHO will closely monitor the situation and work with the South Korean government, and he noted the need for support from the international community to help countries with weak healthcare systems. The coronavirus outbreak is also disrupting the South Korean parliament. The National Assembly was supposed to start its three-day interpellation session today, but it's been postponed indefinitely. Lawmakers were initially scheduled to ask questions this afternoon to government officials, including Prime Minister Chung Se-kyun, regarding political and national security issues. That was postponed because of concerns that someone infected with the coronavirus attended a parliamentary forum hosted by the main opposition party last Wednesday. Following the news, several lawmakers, including United Future Party floor leader Shim Jae-chul, were tested for the virus Monday morning. It's the first time since the flu pandemic of 2009 that South Korea has been put on the highest alert level for disease. The government now has the power to control businesses and transportation. Our Choi Jung-yoon explains what changes might be in store.
South Korean President Moon Jae-in has put the country on the highest possible alert level in its fight against the virus. This move gives the government the power to lock down cities and take other sweeping measures to contain the outbreak. Alert levels for the epidemic in South Korea are split into 4 parts. The lowest level attention is when an epidemic is detected outside Korea. Second is the caution level declared when the virus reaches Korean shores. The level was raised to caution back in January when Korea detected the first COVID-19 case in the country. With 3 more cases confirmed, the country then raised the level 1 notch to emergency. Now, with the virus being transmitted within the community with mass infections, the government has declared a critical alert level. It is the first time in 11 years that this level has been reached. The step was last taken in 2009 to guard against a novel influenza outbreak that killed more than 260 people in South Korea. With the highest level reached, containing outbreak is done through pan-governmental cooperation.
When the level is adjusted to critical, the highest level, ministers of each department work with the central government to contain the virus. The head of the disaster center changes from the health minister to the prime minister.
Under the highest alert level, authorities can order the temporary closure of schools and reduce the operation of public transport, and have more control over flights to and from South Korea. Late on Sunday, the new school year for kindergartens, elementary, middle, and high schools in South Korea was postponed by 1 week. The government also has the power to stop military personnel from going on vacation leave and can forcibly prevent public activities. It can also send extra resources to Daegu City and Cheongdo County, which were designated special care zone. Choi Jung-yoon, Arirang News.
In other news, a series of strong earthquakes hit the border between Turkey and Iran over the weekend, killing at least 9 people and injuring dozens. Our Yoon Jung-min has the details.
Another strong earthquake has hit the border between Turkey and Iran some 10 hours after the first powerful quake over the weekend. According to the European Mediterranean Seismological Center, the second quake that struck the Turkey-Iran border on Sunday had magnitude of 5.8. The U.S. Geological Survey put its magnitude at 6.0. Several hours earlier, a magnitude 5.7 earthquake hit the Turkish city of Van and several villages in Iran. The quakes have killed at least 9 people and injured dozens in Turkey. Turkey's interior minister said at least 3 of the dead were children.
We went there and started removing the wreckage. I mean, it is indescribable. There were children under there. At first, we heard children's voices were coming from the rubble.
The earthquake also injured more than 70 people in Iran. Turkey's public broadcaster said the quake affected about 43 villages in Turkey and caused more than 1,000 buildings to collapse. Emergency teams were sent to the sites for rescue operations. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
The head of the International Monetary Fund is warning that the COVID-19 epidemic could already be putting the fragile global economic recovery at risk, calling its potential economic ripple effects a real concern. On Sunday, at a meeting of G20 finance ministers and central bank governors in Saudi Arabia, Kristalina Georgieva said the projected recovery is fragile. The IMF projects a V-shaped, rapid recovery for the global economy. She said, given the uncertainty around the spread of the virus, she urged financial leaders to prepare for more adverse scenarios. South Korean President Moon Jae-in has told officials to look into drawing up a supplementary budget for dealing with the coronavirus. Speaking in a meeting with his top aides on Monday, Moon said it's the government's role to ease the economic fallout, calling for a swift economic package and noting that timing is of the essence. Here's the president.
기업의 피해 최소화와 국민의 소비 진작, 위축된 지역 경제를 되살려내기 위해서는 과감한 재정 투입이 필요합니다. 예비비를 신속하게 활용하는 것에 더해 필요하다면 국회의 협조를 얻어 추경 예산을 편성하는 것도 검토해 주기 바랍니다.
This was the first such session with his aides since South Korea raised its epidemic alert level on Sunday to the highest level. The president also said that all efforts will be directed at blocking the spread of COVID-19. He called for speedy inspections of followers of the religious group known as Shincheonji, to which a majority of the confirmed cases have been linked. Moon also ordered the thorough management of risk factors, not only in regions designated as special care zones, but other areas as well, to keep the virus out of local communities. Also invited to Monday's session were infectious disease specialists and medical experts to give advice. The South Korean government is reviewing all options to minimize the economic impact of the coronavirus outbreak. Vice Finance Minister Kim Young-bum told reporters Monday that his ministry will provide all possible financial support, including a supplementary budget. Pointing out the Korean currency's rapid depreciation in recent weeks, Kim also said the government will take action if that continues. Meanwhile, the country's trade ministry is helping local businesses hurt by the epidemic both at home and abroad. More than 400 cases of problems caused by the virus have been reported, such as difficulties securing masks and quarantine supplies. The Trade Ministry has solved almost half of those cases by allowing extended working hours, securing international import routes other than China, and speeding up customs processes. Businesses in South Korea are facing big challenges from the coronavirus. Companies like Samsung and Hyundai have been forced to stop production in some cases. It's also hit the country's tourism sector and oil refiners. Our Kim Jae-hee has this report.
The coronavirus is disrupting South Korean firms. Even the biggest companies in South Korea are being affected as cases of the virus emerge among their employees. Samsung had to shut down a smartphone plant in Gumi, Gyeongsangbuk-do province for 3 days after an employee there was confirmed of the virus on Saturday. One employee from Hyundai Steel's plant in the southeastern coastal city of Pohang has also been confirmed to have the virus on Sunday, forcing the company to temporarily shut down part of the office building the employee works in. Meanwhile, South Korea's travel industry has taken an especially big blow. The sector has seen new bookings fall by a whopping 80 to 90% this month. Travel agencies say the situation is almost as bad as the IMF crisis. Korea's 3 largest travel agencies are all going into emergency operating procedures. Hana Tour, South Korea's largest travel agency, said it will begin implementing a 3-day workweek for 2 months starting in March, with employees taking a 20% pay cut. The second largest agency, Modu Tour, is offering paid leave for up to 2 months, with a maximum of 70% of usual pay starting next month. The shipping industry has been disrupted as well.
Along with the tourism industry, the shipping industry is also suffering because the exchange of goods and parts with China has not been smooth recently.
The drop in demand for aviation and shipping fuel, along with lower oil exports to China, has hurt oil refiners and chemical firms. South Korea's biggest oil refiner, SK Innovation, lowered its first quarter operating profit forecast to 71% of what it had forecast a month earlier. South Korea's third largest refiner, S-Oil, also saw its forecast fall to around 82% of last month's forecast. Experts say with recent surge in confirmed coronavirus cases raising uncertainties, more companies may see further damage. Kim Jae-hee, Arirang News.
The city of Seoul has announced it'll be creating 1,700 temporary public jobs for people in sectors affected by the coronavirus. The Seoul Metropolitan Government said Monday that it'll recruit job seekers for 1,300 new public sector positions, such as helping with quarantine measures, as well as 300 culture and tourism jobs and 100 small business jobs. Those jobs will last from March 11th to August 30th, and the pay will be about $43 for a 6-hour workday. Applications will be accepted until March 6th at local administrative offices, at Seoul's Tourism Policy Division office, and at Seoul Botanic Park. Time now for an in-depth look at the market news as we start the week. And for that, I'm joined on the line by Dr. Yang Jun-suk, Professor of Economics at the Catholic University of Korea. Professor Yang, thank you for coming on today.
Happy to be here.
So Korean stock markets today down a staggering 3%, even 4%. U.S. stocks last Friday were down around 1%. What's the story right now in the markets worldwide?
Okay, well, I think the end of last week, global investors realized that it was not just a Chinese problem, it was not just an Asian problem, but it could conceivably be a global problem. The United States, because they haven't had much coronavirus there, and because perhaps the investors were overconfident that if there was indeed a negative shock from the coronavirus, the Fed would lower the rate, which would raise the stock market. I think they took the possibility of stock market fall a bit lightly, but that I think started to go away at the end of last week. So as you mentioned, the U.S. markets fell about 1%, and it may be that that downward trend may continue once the market starts in the U.S. because the Asian markets all lost value today. And then Europe, I think at the end of last week, Euro 50 lost 0.6% of its value. They may continue that trend as well because now Italy has become one of the fastest growing corona-affected countries. And China, well, they had a slight rise in the market on Friday, but they've turned negative today. So all the stock market is now realizing that COVID-19 is more serious than they had thought at the beginning of last week.
Yeah, and U.S. futures are pointing to a much lower opening on Monday in New York. But overseas investment firms are now sharply cutting their growth forecasts for the Korean economy. Those numbers would suggest that hopes are dashed, more or less, for this recovery we'd all been looking forward to. What do you make of these downgrades?
Okay, well, most of the downgrades, assuming that the COVID-19 in China doesn't spread too much beyond China and it ends around the end of March, has been assuming that the shock would be significant but temporary in terms of the global market. And the under that scenario, a lot of investment banks, including ING, Bank of Korea, Merrill Lynch, Societe Generale, has readjusted Korean growth rate for 2020 to somewhere between 1.6 and 1.9%. Now, at the end of last year, when these investment banks and international organizations were estimating Korean growth rates for 2020, we had the optimists and the pessimists. The optimists we're estimating somewhere between 2.1 to 2.4% growth. That includes the Korean government, Bank of Korea, and the IMF. And the pessimists were assuming growth rates of somewhere between 1.6 to 1.9%. And that's about where these investment banks reestimated growth rates are ending up right now. And probably it's because the optimists had assumed that the semiconductor prices would continue to rise, but that price rise has stalled because, well, China is the biggest purchaser of semiconductors to make their own computers, smartphones, and whatnot, and production in China has slowed down considerably in the first quarter and likely for the parts of second quarter as well. So the price rise of semiconductors has stalled, and that means that the pessimistic scenario that we had last year becomes more likely. Now, a situation can become even worse than that because, well, it's not just semiconductors, but we've seen from Hyundai Motors that even a shortage of a minor part can halt the production process. And now the Korean companies themselves are considering stopping factories for a few days or a week so that they don't have COVID virus spreading to their workers. And we've all heard about the tough times that the restaurants and retail stores in Korea are having. So it is very possible that we will have a growth in 1% range. Somewhere between, say, 1.2 to 1.8%. But some of these investment banks are estimating that if Chinese COVID virus goes on for much longer and if it spreads globally, then Korean growth rate may fall even below that to the 0% range, somewhere between 0.1 to 0.9%. I think that's, at least for now, much too pessimistic, but we'll have to wait and see.
All right. Well, this is said to be a big week ahead in terms of the coronavirus and fighting the economic impact of it. The BOK, for one, will be deciding on interest rates with expectations growing for a cut. What should we be watching this week?
Okay, well, as you mentioned, there is the BOK monetary policy meeting, but the governor, Lee Ju-yeol, has given strong hints that he's not ready to lower the rates at this time. Now, there is a comprehensive government plan that will be announced this week, as well as discussions of supplementary budget in the National Assembly. So even though this is not a scheduled event, I think this will be an important news that people should be interested in, especially on the supplementary budget. I personally don't think, given the large budget increase that we had for the regular budget, I don't think a supplementary budget is needed at this time, but politically, it's about as close to a sure thing as I think we can get. It's just a matter of how much and in what areas will they raise the supplementary budget. And then the most interesting economic report, I think, coming out this week for Korea is actually the February Consumer Trend Report. In order for Korea to get beyond the economic slowdown, which we were experiencing even before the COVID-19, consumption has to rise. But we'll have to see whether the long-term trend that we saw in January of consumption increasing, how much of that has been changed by the COVID virus that we saw since the early February. So the consumption trend report will be very interesting. And then in the U.S., we have the Consumer Confidence Report. Because the U.S. growth has been led by consumption, I think how much the consumer confidence has changed will tell us how long a recovery that U.S. can hope for. And then we have China Purchasing Managers Index for manufacturing, so that we can see how the manufacturing sector is doing on China, how bad it was hit by the COVID-19.
That'll all be very interesting to see later this week, Professor Young, but we'll have to leave it there for today. Thanks so much for sharing your insights with us.
Thank you.
Now, after dropping their latest album, Map of the Soul 7, last Friday, K-pop stars BTS held their album launch press conference earlier today. But instead of a normal press conference in central Seoul as previously planned, they aired it live on their YouTube channel, Bangtan TV. The band's agency Big Hit Entertainment said it was to prevent large groups of people coming together in an enclosed space in light of the COVID-19 outbreak. On Saturday, Korea time, BTS's new album broke their own record by topping the iTunes album charts in 91 countries and regions, including the U.S., Britain, France, Russia, and Japan. And that brings us to the end of this newscast. Thank you for watching. More live news coming your way at 7 p.m. Korea time.